everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Nicole and I am a part-time reseller on Poshmark, and today we are going to talk about how March was for me in Poshmark sales. I want to talk about how I made this the most consistent month ever in reselling, and also maybe how it was a little bit slower and maybe I didn't make as much money as I have in the past 2 months for this year. So if this is something that interests you, then definitely keep watching and make sure that you're subscribed, because I do these every single month and I think they're really helpful to be able to analyze how you're doing on a month-to-month basis. And so I would love to have you stick around for more of these, but without further ado, let's get right into the video. Okay, so I talked briefly in that intro about how this was one of the most consistent months I've ever had reselling on Poshmark, but it was a little bit on the lower side in terms of profits made. So I made $893 and I sold 73 listings. So this was lower than the last 2 months of this year, and in fact it was actually lower than my goal. My goal is to hit 1,000 every single month. But I think what had happened was maybe I was just selling things cheaper, and I think that really goes to show, because in prior months I had sold less and I had made more. In fact, in January I made double what I made in this month. So I think it really just goes to show that what you're selling things at makes a huge difference. And with that being said, this was my best month in terms of how many sales I made, in terms of, if I made sales every single day. I only missed one day this month, which says a lot because this month was a little crazy for me. I had a lot of days where things were very slow and I was like concerned I wasn't gonna make a sale, and actually I would make a sale at like 11:57 at night and it would be like, oh my god, I didn't think I was gonna make a sale today. And I also had wisdom teeth surgery in the middle of the month, and so I was kind of out of pocket for a couple days where I was kind of just laying in bed recovering. And so to know that I only missed one day this entire month, and oddly enough that happened to be St. Patrick's Day, so I guess I wasn't feeling so lucky that day, but I made sales every other day this month, and that is really impressive to me because I've never been able to do that in my entire 5 years of reselling. And so I thought that was just something really special, and I held myself up to a really high standard of making sure I made a sale every day of that month. But I think in turn that actually made me make less money because I was selling things really cheap, because I was really just hoping to make a sale every day. So while I'm extremely happy that I was able to make a sale pretty much every day except for one day, I wish that I would have actually made more money. So I think I'm going to go back to what I had done in January and February of just solely trying to focus on making the most profits per item and not just trying to make a sale to make a sale. I think it's a big lesson that a lot of people need to learn when they are resellers, is you don't have to worry about how many sales you make and just making a sale every day. It's more important to remember how much money you're earning from that sale, because if you're going to sell an item for a couple dollars, you're not going to make a lot of profits off of it. So for the breakdown, on average it was about 2 or 3 listings sold each day. Obviously there was days where there was less, and then obviously there was days that there were more, but on average it was about 2 to 3 listings sold each day. And there was one day where I had 10 sold because I made a bundle sale of 10 items, which again was crazy. I had never done that before, so I guess March was a milestone month for a lot of different reasons for me. But again, I didn't really sell that bundle super high. It was a lot of things that had been sitting for a while, and so like I was saying, the average was about 2 to 3 listings sold a day, with one day being extremely high at 10. And the number of orders each day was kind of consistent. Again, it was probably about 2 orders a day on average. Some days were 1, there was one day that was none, and then there was a couple that were 3 or 4. But for the most part, it was about 2 a day, which is kind of on par with the normal for me. And if we go ahead and compare this to February, as you can see in this graph, and also as I already mentioned, February was a little bit higher for me. I think I made closer to $1,100 or $1,200 in February, and you can see in this graph that there was a lot more spikes in the days, which really just means that I made bigger sales in February. And so that's why you see these big spikes, because those days I had made more money on bigger sales. In March, I didn't really feel like I had any big sales that really carried me. In fact, a lot of it was just smaller sales. And so I think that graph is a little bit skewed just because I didn't make any bigger sales, but also it just shows that most of the month I was actually lower than I was in February. But in terms of number of orders compared to February, it was actually on par, if not a little bit higher. So I think that also is good, knowing that I was making around the same amount of sales. I just wasn't selling as higher end items. Okay, so let's talk about what brands made me the most money this month. So Levi's was the top selling brand of the month, followed closely behind American Eagle, which is always a top selling brand for me, followed by Express. So all of these are mall brands, and this is why month to month I always recommend getting mall brands because they end up being my top selling brands. And without fail, I always pick them up. And so this graph really shows clearly how important it is to pick up those small brands because they do really sell and they end up being my top selling brands every single month. And then in terms of number of items sold in each category, American Eagle was the top seller and then followed by Levi's and Express. So it's kind of a little bit out of order in terms of the number made by those brands, but I do find that I can sell Levi's a little bit higher than I can sell American Eagle on average, so that kind of makes sense that there was more orders from American Eagle, but the average sale price or the sales that I made from the brand was a little bit lower. So for the month of March, most of my sales, I would say like 99% of the sales were women's items. There was a couple men's items and then a very small percent of kids items as well, which again is very on par with my normal. I do mainly do women's clothing. I have started to go into men's and kids a little bit more, but women's is my primary focus, so this graph really does make a lot of sense. So about 86% of all my sales this month were not new with tag items and about 14% were new with tag items. Okay, so for the month of March, about 73% of my orders came from offers, which again, like I mentioned prior, I made a lot of offers this month. Actually, I was sending out offers every single day, which is something I will always recommend doing just in general because I think it really goes a long way to send out an offer, especially after someone likes an item. But 73% of my sales, so practically 3/4 of all my sales this month were from offers. So that really says a lot, and that really tells me that making offers works and makes those sales. And then about 18% of my sales came from bundle offer, which is those people that, you know, add things to their bundle and then you send them an offer. I know like one of those was the 10 items that I sold in one bundle. That is a clear example of this. That's also great because then they get that bundle discount factored in, so that's even better. They're saving more money. And then about 9% were things that were bought new. I had one day where I had 3 sales back to back where they were all buy now and they were all bought full price, which was one of the best feelings ever, and that really doesn't happen that often. So the fact that it happened 3 times in one day was very exciting for me. It just kept happening and I was like, what is happening? Why are all these people buying full price? And they were items that had been sitting for a very long time. So it was very exciting to have that happen. And I was so happy that I actually had some buy now this month because I feel like it's really hard for me to get to that point, especially with the new shipping rates. It's like very hard for a buyer to really want to purchase full price. So when it does happen, it's a very exciting moment. Okay, so let's talk about inventory listed this month. Like I mentioned prior months, it's very important to be listing every single day and being very consistent. So I list 5 items a day that are new, brand new, that have never been listed to Poshmark, and then I also relist 5 items a day. So my numbers of inventory added to Poshmark are roughly about 10 items a day. And so that's really nice because that really adds up quickly and it really helps keep my sales consistent. So in the month of March, I added 307 items. Again, this is half of inventory that was already listed that was relisted after 60 days, which counts as a new listing. So that's why it sounds like a lot because it's 10 items a day with 31 days. It basically equals the 307 items that were listed this month. And this is pretty on par with the prior month. I try and be very consistent and make sure that I'm getting the same amount every single month, about 10 items a day on average. And so that number should be the same mostly every month. And in terms of items that I listed this month, there was a lot of Coach, there was a lot of American Eagle, Francesca's. I think those are brands that I continue to add to my closet. Coach normally sells really well for me. American Eagle sells really well for me, and I do buy it for myself. So whatever I take out of my own personal closet, also I can list. And then same thing with Francesca's. So those brands are pretty normal for me to be listing because they are brands that I continue to source or get and continue to sell for me. I also did list a lot of Old Navy items this month. As you could see, I did add a lot of new items of Old Navy. I don't always buy Old Navy in like at the thrift stores or anything, but when I can get it at Dollar Day at the Goodwill, or if I could get it at the bins for like less than $1 per item, I will pick it up. I will not pay more than like $1 for it, just because it's not really worth that to me, especially because it's not an expensive brand to begin with. But if I could get it really cheap, I will pick it up, because I know I can at least make that $1 back and make double or triple or more than that on the item. So I don't mind picking it up for that amount. So that's why I actually added a lot this month, because I did find a lot at the bins and on Dollar Day, and I also was donated a bunch of Old Navy as well. And in terms of items that I did list in my closet this month, the average value of those items was definitely mainly women's. I didn't really have many men's and kids items added. So as you can see by this graph, I have now added 682 items as inventory this year so far, which really says a lot, and I think that really goes a long way, and it really shows that my sales have been higher than they were this time last year, because you could see by this graph that I wasn't adding nearly as many items as I am now. The graph was so much lower, and so it really goes to show that adding new inventory really makes a big difference to make more sales. So that's always something I really recommend if someone's trying to make more sales, that they add more inventory, because it goes such a long way and it really makes such a big difference. So far for the year, I made about $3,500, and as you can see by this graph, March was the most sales or most orders that I made in the given month so far this year, but it is the lowest that I've made in sales for the month, or for the year so far. So while I made the most orders and number of actual sales, the number of profits that I earned was the lowest in all 3 months so far. And you can kind of see that in this graph, where January was really, really high, February was like in the middle, and then March just was really low. I'm really hoping to get this back up in April, and hoping to make April just as good as February or January, if not even better. That is a wrap on my March recap. As I mentioned many times during this video, March was a great month for me because I had made sales pretty much every single day. And I was sending out offers every day, and that is something I really recommend, and I will actually make a whole nother video on that next week on why it's so important to be sending out those offers. But I just wanted this to be a kind of a lesson to those of you that are selling things really cheap and are, you know, maybe upset that you're not making as much as you would hope to be. This is a good example of that. You could sell a lot of items and you can make sales every single day, but just because you're doing that doesn't mean you're gonna make a lot of money. And I think that really goes to show, because I made a lot more sales this month than I had normally done in the past 2 months, but my sales were less than half, or, you know, way less. So I definitely want to take this as a lesson learned and make sure that going forward, I don't just send out offers to make a sale, and that I'm not just trying to focus on getting sales every day. Rather, I'm trying to focus on getting better sales and better amounts earned on each item. But I still think it was a great month for me. Like I said, I was almost able to make a sale every day, and I had a couple other milestones hit where, like, I had a 10 item bundle at one point in the month, which was record breaking for me. And I also had a day where I had 3 back-to-back full price sales. And again, these are things that don't normally happen for me. So there are definitely still things to celebrate. And it's also important to note that while I didn't make my goal for $1,000 this month, I'm still very proud of the month that I had, given the circumstances, and I really hope that April brings a lot of great sales and a lot of great moments. So I am not really discouraged that I didn't make my goal for the month, and I think it's okay that that happens every once in a while. As long as you stay on track and you stay somewhat close, I think that's all that really matters. And in terms of prospects for the year, if I was aiming to get $1,000 a month and I'm already at $3,500, I think I'm still on track. And so I think that's what's important to look at, where, yeah, you didn't hit a goal, but like you're still on track in the long run. And so I think it's totally okay, and I don't want others to get discouraged if they didn't reach their goal that they set. Sometimes we set those goals just to keep us on track and to keep us focused, but it's okay if you don't hit it, and you just got to keep going forward and hoping that the next month will be better. And here I am hoping that April is going to be so much better for me. I'm going to start selling a lot of summer items, and I think more and more people are going to start shopping, especially when people get their tax refunds and everything like that. So hopefully April is great for you guys as well, but I'm curious down below how March was for you, so let me know in the comments how it was for you. Did you hit your goal? Did you make as many sales as you wanted? Did you have any milestones this month? And even if it was, I made a sale, I made a sale one day and that was a milestone for you, I think it's important to celebrate those. So let me know down below any milestones that you had or anything that you wanted to celebrate that you did in the month of March, and let's hope that April is great for all of us. If you want to see some great secret features that you should be using on Poshmark, you can click right here. And also, if you want to see things that you should not be doing on Poshmark that are hurting your listings and making them so they don't sell, which I find this to be a really important thing because it's so important to make sure that your listings are as sellable as possible. So if you want to see this video where I talk about that, you can click right here, and that will give you a lot of listing tips and ways to make your listings better. But until next time, I will see you then.